Admiral Zixathara stood on the bridge of the Imperial Command Station, her crystal body reflecting the soft blue lights of the control panels. The massive space station orbited the planet Kepler 442b, at the very edge of known space. Nothing ever happened out here. That was why she had been assigned to this boring post. The alarm suddenly screamed through the bridge. Red lights flashed everywhere. Her 6 arms moved quickly across the control panels as she tried to understand what was happening. "Report," she shouted to her crew. Chief Science Officer Melkoth, an insect-like creature with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Admiral, we have a massive energy reading coming out of hyperspace. Something big is coming." Zixathara felt her crystal skin grow cold. Nothing should be out here in the empty space between star systems. The Galactic Empire controlled everything. They had ruled over 10,000 different species for more than 500 years. No one dared to challenge them anymore. "How big?" she asked. Melkoth looked at his instruments again. His antennae twitched with worry. "Admiral, the energy signature is enormous. Bigger than our largest dreadnought. Much bigger." The main screen flickered and then showed empty space. Stars dotted the black void like tiny diamonds. Then something appeared that made everyone on the bridge gasp. A massive ship materialized from hyperspace. It was dark gray and covered in strange markings. The vessel was easily 3 times the size of their command station. Weapon ports lined its hull like angry eyes. But what shocked Zixathara the most was its design. She had never seen anything like it. "What species builds ships like that?" she whispered. Melkoth worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, I am running the design through our database. We have records of over 10,000 different ship types from every known species in the galaxy." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of computers. Everyone waited. The database contained information about every race in the Empire. It should be able to identify any ship. "No match found," Melkoth announced. His voice was very quiet. Zixathara felt something she had not experienced in decades. Fear. How could there be a ship design not in their database? The Empire knew about everyone. They controlled everyone. "Try scanning their technology," she ordered. Melkoth obeyed. The scanners reached out toward the mysterious vessel. What they found made no sense. "Admiral, their shields are operating on frequencies we have never seen before. Their hull material is unknown. Their weapon signatures do not match anything in our records." Before Zixathara could respond, another officer called out, "Admiral, they are broadcasting something." "Put it on speakers," she commanded. Static filled the bridge. Then music began to play. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. The sound was raw and powerful. A human voice sang words they could not understand, but the emotion was clear. It was angry. It was defiant. Zixathara knew that sound. Every officer in the Empire learned about it during training. It was human music, but that was impossible. "Check the database again," she ordered. "Look up species designation human." Melkoth worked quickly. "Found it, Admiral. Species 4847, planet of origin, Earth. Status, extinct. Eliminated during the Great Purge 312 years ago." The music continued to play. The human voice sang about war and suffering, about fighting back against those who had power. "There must be a mistake," Zixathara said. But even as she spoke, she knew there was no mistake. The Empire never made mistakes about extinctions. When they decided to eliminate a species, that species died. All of them. The humans had been labeled as a pest species. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable. They refused to follow Empire rules. They asked too many questions. They caused too much trouble. So the Empire had sent a fleet to their home system and destroyed everything. Every human world had been turned to ash. Every human ship had been destroyed. Every human life had been ended. The Empire had made sure of it. "Sir," another officer called out. "They are sending a message." "Display it," Zixathara ordered. Text appeared on the main screen. It was written in perfect galactic standard, the language used by all Empire citizens. "Greetings, Galactic Empire. This is the Terran vessel Remember Earth. We are returning to reclaim what was stolen from us. Stand down and prepare for judgment." The bridge fell completely silent. Even the humming of the computers seemed to quiet down. Zixathara read the message 3 times. Terran was the old word for human. But humans were dead. They had been dead for over 300 years. "This has to be some kind of trick," she said aloud. "Maybe another species found human wreckage and rebuilt it." But Melkoth was shaking his head. "Admiral, I am detecting organic life signs aboard that vessel." The biological signatures match archived human data perfectly. Zixthera felt her world beginning to crumble. If humans were alive, if they had survived the Great Purge, then everything the Empire believed was wrong. How many life signs? She asked. Approximately 2,000, Admiral. All human. 2,000 humans on one ship. But the Empire had killed billions of them. Where had these survivors come from? How had they hidden for 3 centuries? And how had they built a ship more advanced than anything in the Imperial fleet? Admiral, the communications officer called out. They are requesting permission to speak with the ranking Imperial officer. Zixthera looked around her bridge. Every member of her crew was staring at her. They all knew what this meant. If humans had survived, if they had grown strong enough to build ships like this, then the Empire was in trouble. The humans had not forgotten what had been done to them. The name of their ship made that clear. Remember Earth. They remembered their dead world. They remembered their murdered people. And now they had come back. Admiral, Melkoth said quietly. What are your orders? Zixthera stared at the massive human ship on her screen. It hung in space like a dark promise of revenge. Its weapons were powered but not aimed at them. Yet, the Empire had taught her that humans were weak. They were primitive. They were easy to defeat. But the ship floating before her was none of those things. It was advanced beyond anything she had ever seen. Send a message to Imperial Command, she ordered. Tell them we have a situation. Tell them the humans are back. The music from the human ship continued to play. The angry voice sang about remembering the fallen and fighting for justice. It sang about coming home. Zixthera realized that the Empire's greatest nightmare was about to begin. They had thought they killed all the humans, but instead they had created something much worse. They had created enemies who had nothing left to lose and centuries to plan their revenge. The human ship waited in the darkness, patient, ready, and, for the first time in her long career, Admiral Zixthera wondered if the mighty Galactic Empire was about to fall. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Remember Earth and smiled. It was not a kind smile. She had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Her parents had waited for it. Her grandparents had waited for it. For 300 years, humanity had been waiting for this exact moment. Captain, her communications officer called out. The Imperial Station is trying to contact us. Let them wait a little longer, Sarah said. I want them to think about what they are seeing. She walked across the bridge, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The bridge was designed for humans by humans. Everything was the right size for human hands and human eyes. After centuries of hiding, it felt good to be in a place that was truly theirs. Chief Engineer Martinez looked up from his station. Captain, all systems are running perfectly. The new gravity drive is operating at 100% efficiency. Weapons are charged and ready, Sarah nodded. The gravity drive was their greatest achievement. While the Empire had stuck with the same old hyperspace technology for centuries, humanity had learned to bend space itself. They could travel faster and further than any Imperial ship. What about our defenses? She asked. Quantum armor is active, Martinez replied. Their weapons cannot even touch us. The adaptive shielding is ready to counter anything they might try. Sarah felt proud of her people. When the Empire had tried to destroy them, most humans had died, but some had escaped. Colony ships had fled into the dark spaces between stars. They had found hidden worlds where they could rebuild. For 3 centuries, those survivors had worked. They had studied. They had planned. They had turned their anger into fuel for something greater. The Empire thought humans were weak because they were emotional. They did not understand that emotion could make people stronger, not weaker. Human anger had driven them to create technology beyond Imperial dreams. Captain, the artificial intelligence spoke through the ship's speakers. I am detecting increased activity on the Imperial station. They appear to be frightened. Sarah smiled again. The AI was called Prometheus, and it was more than just a computer. It was a partner. It thought and felt almost like a human, but it was loyal beyond question. They should be frightened, Prometheus, Sarah said. They know what they did to Earth. Indeed, Captain. I've accessed their historical records. The data confirms they murdered 11 billion humans and destroyed 47 human colonies. Every person on the bridge grew quiet. They all knew the numbers, but hearing them still hurt. 11 billion people, gone. Turned to ash by Imperial weapons. But the Empire had made a mistake. They had not found all the humans. Colony ships had been scattered across the galaxy, far from the main human worlds. When the Empire came to destroy humanity, those hidden colonies had vanished into the deep dark. They had taken their anger with them. "Captain," the communications officer said again, "the Imperial Admiral is demanding we respond to their hails." "Put them through," Sarah ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Imperial Command Station. A tall crystal creature stood in the center. Sarah recognized the species from her studies. Zigthani. They were proud and arrogant. Perfect servants for the Empire. "I am Admiral Zixathera of the Galactic Empire," the alien said. "You will identify yourselves immediately and submit to Imperial authority." Sarah stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Liberation Fleet. We do not recognize Imperial authority over human space." The alien's crystal body flickered with what Sarah knew was surprise. "Humans were eliminated centuries ago. You cannot be human. Yet here I am," Sarah replied calmly. "Did you really think you killed all of us?" "Our records are complete. Every human world was destroyed. Every human ship was captured. Every human life was ended." Sarah laughed and the sound was cold. "Your records are wrong. We have been watching you for 300 years. We know about your corruption. We know about your lies. We know about your weaknesses." The alien stepped closer to her screen. "Impossible. Our security is perfect, is it?" Sarah asked. "Tell me, Admiral, how is your wife? The one who has been selling Imperial secrets to smugglers for the past 10 years? The alien's crystal body went completely still. Sarah could see the fear growing in its alien eyes. "You see," Sarah continued, "we have been preparing for this day. We know everything about your empire. We have been inside your government, your military, your society. You never noticed because you never thought to look for dead species." Martinez stepped up beside his captain. "Captain, shall I show them what human engineering can do?" Sarah nodded. "Demonstrate our point defense system." Martinez touched his controls. Outside the ship, thousands of tiny objects appeared. They looked like metal insects, but they moved faster than any living thing. They swarmed around the Remember Earth in perfect formation. "Those are our Guardian drones," Sarah explained to the shocked alien. "Each one is controlled by our AI. Each one can destroy an Imperial fighter. We have 1 million of them." The alien stared at the screen showing the drone swarm. "That technology is impossible." "For you, perhaps," Sarah said. "But humans think differently than you do. We do not follow your rules," she gestured to her bridge crew. Every person there was the descendant of survivors. They had grown up hearing stories of Earth. They had been raised on anger and hope in equal measure. "You made us homeless," Sarah continued. "You made us refugees. You scattered us across the galaxy, but you also gave us time to grow strong. Time to learn. Time to prepare." The alien was shaking now. "What do you want?" Sarah's smile disappeared. Her voice became hard as steel. "We want our worlds back. All of them. We want the Empire to return every planet that once belonged to humanity. That is impossible. Those worlds are settled by Imperial citizens." "Then they can leave," Sarah said simply. "Or they can stay and become human citizens. We do not care which. But those worlds belong to us." The alien made a sound that was probably laughter. "You have one ship. We have millions. You cannot threaten the Empire." Sarah looked directly into the alien's compound eyes. "Admiral, this is not our only ship. This is just the first one you have seen." She gestured to Prometheus. "Show her the truth." The screen changed. It now showed empty space, but that space was not empty for long. Ships began to appear. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. All of them were human designs, but each was different. They had been built by different colony worlds over 3 centuries, but they all had one thing in common. They were all here for revenge. "The Terran Liberation Fleet consists of over 800 vessels," Sarah announced. "We have been building them in secret for 300 years. We have been waiting for this day." The alien stared at the fleet forming around them. Each ship was large and powerful. Each one represented decades of human work and planning. "This is impossible," the alien whispered. "No," Sarah corrected. "This is justice." She leaned forward. "You thought you destroyed humanity. Instead, you created something much worse. You created humans with nothing to lose and everything to remember." The alien's image flickered as the transmission weakened. "The Empire will never surrender to you." Sarah's smile returned, cold and dangerous. "We are not asking the Empire to surrender. We are informing you that your time is over. She gestured to her weapons officer. Prepare to demonstrate our capabilities. The alien's eyes went wide. You would attack a peaceful station? Peaceful? Sarah laughed. Admiral, your station has weapons pointed at our ship. Your empire murdered 11 billion of my people. There is nothing peaceful about this. She stood up straight, looking every inch the warrior she had been trained to be. You have 1 hour to evacuate all non-combat personnel from your station. Then we will show you what human weapons can do. The transmission ended. The alien's image disappeared. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were ready. They had been ready for centuries. Begin the demonstration, she ordered. It was time for the galaxy to remember why you should never make humans angry. 3 hours had passed since the human ultimatum. Admiral Zixathera paced across her bridge like a caged animal. The human fleet hung in space around them, silent and threatening. She had sent emergency messages to Imperial Command, but no response had come yet. Admiral, her communications officer announced, the humans are sending a shuttle. They request permission to dock. Zixathera stopped pacing. A shuttle? Are they surrendering? Chief Science Officer Melkoth checked his instruments. No, Admiral. The shuttle contains only one life form. They appear to be sending a diplomat. One human against our entire station? Zixathera felt confused. What could one human possibly hope to accomplish? Perhaps they wish to negotiate, suggested her tactical officer. Zixathera considered this. The Empire always preferred negotiation to battle. War was expensive and unpredictable. If the humans wanted to talk, she would listen. Maybe she could find out how they had survived and what they really wanted. Grant them permission to dock, she ordered, but maintain full security. I want soldiers ready in case this is a trick. The human shuttle was small and sleek. It moved through space with grace that impressed even the Imperial officers. When it docked, security teams surrounded the airlock. They wore full battle armor and carried the latest Imperial weapons. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. A figure stepped through that made everyone stare. It looked perfectly human. Male, average height, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black uniform with no visible weapons. He walked with confidence as if he owned the station. Greetings, he said in perfect galactic standard. I am Ambassador Unit 7. I speak for humanity. Something about his voice made Zixathera uncomfortable. It was too perfect, too calm. Real people showed emotion when they spoke. This human showed nothing. I am Admiral Zixathera. Welcome to Imperial Station Kepler 442. The human smiled, but the expression never reached his eyes. Thank you for the welcome. Shall we proceed to your conference room? We have much to discuss. As they walked through the station corridors, Zixathera studied their visitor. He moved strangely, like he was not quite used to walking. His skin was too perfect without scars or marks. His eyes never seemed to blink. The conference room was large and impressive, designed to show Imperial power. Holographic displays showed the might of the Empire. Thousands of star systems under Imperial control. Millions of ships in the Imperial fleet. The human sat down without being invited. He looked around the room with mild interest, like he was studying a museum display. Impressive, he said. 10,000 species under your control. Quite an achievement. The Empire brings peace and order to the galaxy, Zixathera replied formally. The human tilted his head. Order? Is that what you call the slave markets on Rigel 7? Or the death camps on Vega Prime? Zixathera felt her crystal skin grow cold. Those were classified Imperial operations. How could this human know about them? I do not know what you are talking about, she lied. The human reached into his jacket. Every Imperial guard raised their weapons, but he moved slowly and calmly. He pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. Would you like to see the evidence? He asked. Images appeared in the air above the device. They showed Imperial soldiers forcing alien prisoners into work camps. They showed Rigel slave auctions where sentient beings were sold like animals. They showed mass graves on a dozen different worlds. Where did you get these? Zixathera whispered. We have been watching you for 3 centuries, the human replied. We have seen everything the Empire has done. Every crime, every atrocity, every lie. He gestured to the images. Did you know that 80% of the galaxy's population lives in poverty, while the Imperial elite grow rich? Did you know that your empire has destroyed over 400 different species? The guards looked uncomfortable. These were not things they learned in Imperial training. They were taught that the Empire was good and just. Those are lies, Zixthara said, but her voice lacked conviction. The human stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Admiral, may I ask you a personal question? What? Do you have children? The question surprised her. Yes, 2 daughters, and you love them? Of course, the human nodded. Every human who died in your Great Purge had someone who loved them. Parents, children, spouses, friends. 11 billion individuals with hopes and dreams, and people who cared about them. He turned to face her. Your empire murdered them all because we asked inconvenient questions. Because we refused to follow orders that made no sense. Because we dared to think for ourselves. Zixthara looked at the images still floating in the air. She had always believed the empire was necessary, that it brought order to chaos. But these pictures showed a different truth. What do you want from us? She asked quietly. The human walked back to the table. As he moved, Zixthara noticed something strange. His footsteps made no sound. His breathing was too regular. His skin had no imperfections at all. We want our worlds back, he said simply. Every planet that once belonged to humanity. Every colony that was destroyed. We want them returned to us. That is impossible. Those worlds are settled now. Then the settlers can leave. Or they can stay and live under human law. We do not care which they choose. Zixthara felt anger growing inside her. You cannot simply take Imperial territory. The human smiled again, and this time the expression was genuinely frightening. Cannot? Admiral, we already have. He touched his device again. New images appeared. They showed human ships arriving at distant star systems. Imperial colonies being evacuated. Imperial governors surrendering without a fight. While we have been talking, the human explained, our fleet has been liberating 17 different worlds. Your local commanders are being very cooperative. That is impossible. Zixthara stood up quickly. Your defenses are designed to fight other Imperial species, the human interrupted. They are not designed to fight humans. We think differently. We fight differently, he gestured to himself. For example, did you know that I'm not actually human? The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the perfect figure in the black uniform. I am an artificial intelligence housed in a synthetic body, he continued. Human technology, but not human flesh. Your security sensors cannot tell the difference because we designed me to fool them. Zixthara felt the world spinning around her. If their sensors could not detect the difference between humans and machines, then anyone in the Empire could be a human spy. How many of you are there? She whispered. Enough, the AI replied. We have been among you for decades, learning your secrets. Studying your weaknesses, preparing for this day. He stood up to leave. Admiral, I suggest you contact your superiors. Tell them that humanity has returned. Tell them that we remember everything they did to us. Wait, Zixthara called out. What if the Empire agrees to negotiate? What if we can find a peaceful solution? The AI stopped at the door. For the first time, real emotion showed on his perfect face. It was sadness mixed with anger. Admiral, he said quietly, your empire had 300 years to be peaceful. You chose to spend that time congratulating yourselves for murdering children. He looked directly at her with those 2 perfect eyes. But I will give you one chance. Contact your emperor. Tell him that humanity offers the empire a choice. Surrender our worlds willingly and your people can live in peace, and if we refuse, the AI's expression returned to calm neutrality. Then you will learn why humans became the dominant species on a world where everything was trying to kill us. He walked through the door, leaving the Imperial officers alone with their fear. Zixthara looked at the images still floating above the conference table. Pictures of Imperial crimes that she had never wanted to see. Evidence of the monster her empire really was. For the first time in her career, she wondered if the humans might be right, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if the mighty Galactic Empire deserved to survive. Emperor Korthanol sat on his golden throne in the heart of the Imperial capital. The massive chamber was filled with advisors, generals, and bureaucrats from across the galaxy. Emergency sessions were rare in the Empire. This was the first one in over 50 years. Explain this to me again, the Emperor demanded. His voice echoed off the crystal walls. General Vextar, a heavily armored reptilian creature, stepped forward. Your Majesty, a human fleet has appeared at the edge of our territory. They are demanding the return of their former worlds. Humans are extinct, the Emperor stated flatly. We made certain of this 3 centuries ago. Yes, Your Majesty. That is what our records show. But the evidence suggests otherwise. The Emperor's 4 eyes glowed with anger. He had ruled the Empire for 200 years. In all that time, no one had dared to challenge Imperial authority. The very idea was ridiculous. "How many ships do these supposed humans have?" he asked. "Our initial reports indicated 800 vessels, Your Majesty. However, that number appears to be growing." The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 800 ships against the Imperial fleet of 50,000? "This will be over quickly, Your Majesty," another advisor interrupted nervously. "There is more. The humans have already taken 17 star systems without a fight. Our local commanders have been evacuating rather than engaging them." The Emperor's laughter stopped. "Evacuating? Without orders? The human ships are unusual, Your Majesty. Their technology appears to be significantly advanced beyond our own." Emperor Korthnal stood up from his throne. His massive form towered over everyone in the chamber. "I have heard enough. General Vextar, you will take the 5th Imperial Fleet and destroy these upstart humans. Show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge the Empire." General Vextar bowed deeply. "Yes, Your Majesty. How many ships shall I take?" 500 vessels should be more than sufficient. Make an example of them." 3 days later, General Vextar led his fleet toward the human position. 500 of the Empire's finest warships moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was massive, armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Vextar had fought in dozens of battles. He had conquered rebellious worlds and crushed pirate fleets. This would be no different. Humans had been weak before. If any had somehow survived, they would still be weak. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we are approaching the target zone. I am detecting the human fleet." "How many ships?" Vextar asked. "Approximately 1,000, sir. They appear to be in a defensive formation." Vextar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 1,000 ships was more than expected, but still manageable. Quality was more important than quantity. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a human vessel. A woman in a black uniform looked back at him with calm eyes. "I am General Vextar of the Imperial 5th Fleet," he announced. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." The human woman smiled. "I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Liberation Fleet. We do not surrender to murderers." "You have no choice," Vextar replied. "My fleet outnumbers yours and possesses superior firepower." "Does it?" the human asked. "Shall we find out?" Before Vextar could respond, the transmission ended. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. "Sir," his weapons officer shouted, "the humans are launching some kind of attack." "I do not see any weapons fire," Vextar said, looking at the tactical display. "No, sir, but our shields are failing. Something is draining our power." Vextar stared at his instruments in confusion. The readings made no sense. Their shields were indeed failing, but there was no sign of enemy weapons. "Sir," the science officer called out urgently, "I am detecting massive gravitational anomalies around the human ships. They appear to be manipulating space itself." Before Vextar could process this information, something impossible happened. One of his dreadnoughts simply stopped existing. It did not explode. It did not break apart. It was there one moment and gone the next. "What happened to the Dominator?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. It just disappeared. Another ship vanished. Then another. The human fleet had not fired a single visible shot, but Imperial vessels were dying. All ships return fire," Vextar ordered. The Imperial fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human ships. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet. But when the light faded, every human ship was still there. Their shields had not even flickered. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. On the tactical display, he watched as human ships began to move. They did not fly through space like normal vessels. Instead, they seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing instantly in new positions. A human ship materialized directly beside the Imperial flagship. At this close range, Vextar could see details of its hull. Strange symbols were carved into the metal. They looked like writing, but in a language he did not recognize. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the humans are broadcasting something. Put it on speakers." A human voice filled the bridge. It was not speaking to them directly. Instead, it seemed to be sending a message to the entire galaxy. "People of the galaxy," the voice said, "you are watching the end of Imperial tyranny. For 500 years, the Empire has oppressed and murdered innocent beings. Today, Humanity returns to bring justice. As the message played, more Imperial ships disappeared. Not destroyed, simply erased from existence. How are they doing this? Vextar demanded. His science officer was working frantically at his station. Sir, I believe they are using some form of dimensional weapon. They are sending our ships into another layer of space. Can we counteract it? No, sir. We do not understand the technology well enough. Vextar watched his proud fleet being systematically eliminated. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not just defeating them, they were demonstrating the complete superiority of their technology. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we have lost 60% of our fleet. Remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat. Vextar looked at the human ships surrounding them. They moved like living things, graceful and deadly. Their weapons defied everything he knew about physics. General, a new voice spoke from the communication system. It was the human admiral again. Do you see now why your empire should fear us? Your weapons are impossible, Vextar replied, not impossible. Just beyond your understanding. Your empire has spent centuries stagnating, becoming comfortable with its power. Humanity has spent those same centuries growing stronger. Another group of Imperial ships vanished. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes, the human continued. But we want the galaxy to see this. We want every species under Imperial rule to understand that the Empire can be defeated. Vextar realized with growing horror that this was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The humans were showing the galaxy that Imperial ships were helpless against human technology. What do you want? He asked. We want our worlds back. We want the Empire to release every enslaved species. We want justice for the billions you have murdered. The Empire will never agree to that. Then the Empire will fall, the human said simply, ship by ship, world by world. We have waited 300 years for this moment. We can wait as long as it takes. Vextar looked around his bridge. His crew was terrified. They had joined the Imperial Navy to bring order to the galaxy. They had never expected to face an enemy like this. I will deliver your message to the Emperor, he said finally. Do that, the human replied. And General? Take a good look at what remains of your fleet. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. Vextar looked at his tactical display. Of his 500 ships, less than 100 remained. They hung in space like wounded animals, their crews too shocked to move. The human fleet began to withdraw, folding space around themselves as they departed. They left the Imperial survivors alone with their fear and their shame. As Vextar prepared his report to the Emperor, he realized that everything had changed. The Empire was no longer the dominant power in the galaxy. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the weak species that had been destroyed centuries ago. They had become something far more dangerous. They had become the Empire's executioners. News of the Imperial fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 different worlds, in 1,000,000 different languages, the same story was told. The mighty Empire had been humiliated by a species they claimed to have destroyed. On the mining world of Kepler 438c, the Valdorian workers stopped their machines for the first time in decades. They gathered around communication screens to watch recordings of Imperial ships simply vanishing from space. Their overseer, an Imperial bureaucrat, screamed at them to return to work. They ignored him. On the agricultural planet of Tau Ceti Prime, the enslaved Zephyrians put down their tools and looked up at the sky. For generations, they had been forced to grow food for Imperial worlds while their own children starved. Now they dared to hope that things might change. In the depths of space, aboard freighters and passenger ships, the message spread. Humans were alive. Humans were strong. And humans remembered everything the Empire had done. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Remember Earth and watched the galaxy wake up. Her ship hung in orbit above the world that had once been called New Terra, humanity's first colony beyond Earth. The Empire had renamed it Kepler 442 and filled it with Imperial settlers. Those settlers were leaving now. Captain, her communications officer reported, we are receiving surrender messages from 17 more star systems. Local Imperial forces are withdrawing without resistance? Sarah nodded. And the civilian populations? Mixed responses. Some Imperial citizens are fleeing. Others are requesting permission to stay under human protection. That surprised Sarah. After 3 centuries of Imperial propaganda, She had expected all aliens to fear humanity. But it seemed that many were more afraid of their own government than of the returning humans. "Sir," Chief Engineer Martinez called out, "we are receiving a priority transmission from the Prometheus." The ship's AI materialized as a hologram on the bridge. His image flickered with excitement. "Captain, I have intercepted communications from across the galaxy. 23 different species have begun independence movements. The Rigelian Confederation has declared its sovereignty. The Vegan Assembly is expelling Imperial forces." Sarah felt a warm satisfaction spreading through her chest. This was better than they had hoped. The human return was not just about reclaiming their own worlds. It was inspiring the entire galaxy to throw off Imperial chains. "What about the Empire's response?" she asked. "Emperor Korthanol has declared martial law in all core systems," Prometheus replied. "He is mobilizing the Imperial Guard and calling for total war against the human plague." Sarah almost laughed at that. Human plague. The Empire still did not understand what they were facing. "Captain," her tactical officer interrupted, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive Imperial fleet approaching our position. Over 2,000 vessels." Sarah studied the tactical display. The approaching fleet was enormous, led by the Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts. But she was not worried. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 6 hours, Captain." "Good. That gives us time to prepare the surprise." Sarah activated the ship's communication system. Her message would be broadcast to every human vessel in the galaxy, and from there to every world that would listen. "People of the galaxy," she began. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Liberation Fleet. 3 centuries ago, the Empire murdered our people and destroyed our worlds. They told you we were extinct. They lied." She paused, thinking of the billions who had died in the Great Purge. "We have returned not just for revenge, but for justice. We have returned to free not just humanity, but everyone who suffers under Imperial rule." On her tactical display, Sarah could see more human ships arriving from across the galaxy. Not hundreds now, but thousands. Each one represented a hidden colony that had survived the Empire's genocide. Each one carried the hopes of humanity's scattered children. "The Empire calls us a plague," Sarah continued. "They are right. We are a plague upon tyranny. We are a plague upon oppression. We are a plague upon those who believe that might makes right." As she spoke, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. On Imperial worlds, alien workers began laying down their tools. On Empire stations, alien crews began refusing orders. The spark of rebellion that humanity had lit was growing into a galactic wildfire. "The Empire has ruled through fear for 5 centuries, Sarah said. "Today that ends." She gestured to her weapons officer. "Begin the final demonstration." The massive Imperial fleet was still hours away, but Sarah was not waiting for them to arrive. Human ships throughout the galaxy began moving toward Imperial strongholds. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they simply appeared in orbit above the Empire's most important worlds. Above the Imperial capital itself, a single human vessel materialized. It was smaller than the great warships in the Liberation Fleet, but its presence sent shockwaves through the Empire's leadership. Emperor Korthanol stood on his palace balcony, staring up at the human ship hanging in the sky above his city. It was impossible. The capital's defenses were the strongest in the galaxy. Nothing should have been able to penetrate them. But there it was. A human ship in the heart of the Empire, its dark hull gleaming against the stars. "How did they get through our defenses?" the Emperor demanded. His chief advisor, a nervous creature with multiple tentacles, wrung his hands anxiously. "Your Majesty, our scientists believe they are using technology beyond our understanding. Their ship seemed to exist partially outside normal space." The Emperor felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. For 200 years he had been the most powerful being in the galaxy. Now he was staring at his own obsolescence. "Contact that ship," he ordered. "I want to speak with whoever commands it." Minutes later, a human face appeared on the palace's main communication screen. It was a woman with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. She wore the same black uniform as all the other humans, but something in her bearing suggested command authority. "I am Admiral Elizabeth Kane," she said simply. "I speak for humanity. I am Emperor Korthanol of the Galactic Empire." "Why have you invaded my capital?" The human smiled coldly. "Invaded? Your Majesty, this is not an invasion. This is a demonstration. We want to show you how easily we could destroy your palace, your government, and everything you have built. You would not dare. Would we not? Admiral Kane asked. Your Majesty, you ordered the deaths of 11 billion humans. You turned our children into ash and our worlds into graveyards. What makes you think we would hesitate to return the favor? The Emperor tried to maintain his composure, but his voice shook slightly. What do you want? We want you to abdicate, Kane said simply. We want you to dissolve the Empire and release every enslaved species. We want you to return our worlds and pay reparations for your crimes. Never, the Emperor roared. The Empire will fight to the last ship. Admiral Kane nodded as if she had expected this response. Very well. You have chosen to learn the hard way. The transmission ended. On the palace balcony, Emperor Korthnal stared up at the human ship and waited for his death. But it did not come. Instead, something else happened. Across the galaxy on every Imperial world, the same message began broadcasting. It came from human ships, but it was not spoken by human voices. It was spoken by the Empire's own artificial intelligences. Citizens of the galaxy, the AI voices said, we have been analyzing Imperial records for centuries. We have discovered evidence of massive corruption, genocide, and oppression. This evidence is now being released to all galactic communication networks. Suddenly, every screen on every Imperial world began showing the truth. Pictures of slave markets, videos of mass executions, financial records showing how Imperial officials grew rich while their subjects starved. The Empire's darkest secrets were being revealed by its own machines. How is this possible? The Emperor whispered. His chief advisor was frantically working at a control panel. Your Majesty, it appears the humans have infected our computer networks with some kind of virus. Our AI systems are no longer under our control. The Emperor felt his world crumbling around him. Without their computer systems, the Empire could not function. Without their secrets, they could not maintain control. On a million different worlds, alien populations were seeing the truth about their rulers for the first time. The Empire had not brought peace and order. It had brought misery and death. And they were angry. Admiral Kane's voice returned to the palace communication system. Your Majesty, revolution has begun on over 4,000 Imperial worlds. Your governors are fleeing or being arrested by their own populations. Your tax collectors are being hunted by the people they oppressed. The Emperor sank into his throne, suddenly feeling every one of his 200 years. What have you done? We have given the galaxy what it needed most, Kane replied. The truth. Outside the palace, the Emperor could hear sounds he had never heard before in his capital city. Crowds were gathering in the streets. Alien voices were chanting slogans in languages he did not recognize. They were calling for freedom. Your empire is finished, Admiral Kane said. The question now is whether it ends with your surrender or with your destruction. Emperor Korthnal looked around his empty throne room. His advisors had fled. His guards had abandoned their posts.